Good afternoon, everyone. It's another MyMusic with Graham Coath. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to my friend Drew here. But first, this. I need to get going, Mel. See you later. There you go, Drew. A laptop stand. You must spend a lot of time in front of the computer with work.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking I might need that product. It looks useful. So
Well, we can sort something out for you there, sir.
Oh, nice.
there's a DJ down the bottom using it as well. You see, it's quite useful for lots of things.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, there you go. So, Drew, why Persian leaps for start? Let's just cover that one off, and then we'll go back into time in a minute. But why Persian leaps?
Yeah, well, that actually goes back into time quite a bit. So when I was in college, I was very interested in archaeology, and I studied archaeology, and I ended up getting a master's degree in archaeology and working in the field for a number of years. But anyway, I was in like a sophomore Greek archaeology class learning about the Persian-Greek War, and I just kind of doodled in the margins of my notebook the Persian leaps from his chariot, blah blah blah. It was, like a little poem or something I was writing, and
yeah.
But and then I thought, the Persian leaps. I really like the way that sounds. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I liked just the ring of it. And so I decided then and there that if I ever had a band, I was going to name it the Persian Leaps. And it took a couple decades, but it's happened.
But there you are. It's happened. Do you find when you name a band something like that, does certain other aspects of your life then have to try and or automatically fall in to something around Persian? Do you suddenly start looking at Persian carpets and do you know?
You know what? I since you asked that, but I do have kind of a frustrating anecdote about why that band name has turned out to be a challenge. So, we sell our music on Bandcamp, and both digital and CDs. And a couple years ago, people trying to buy the CDs just started running into issues with PayPal. Just they would go to checkout, and their transactions would be denied. And basically I figured out that I think like in 2015 or something like that, PayPal got slapped by like a multi-million-dollar fine by the US Department of Treasury because they weren't enforcing sanctions against Iran and Cuba and stuff like that. And so basically, since ancient Persia is modern day Iran, the word Persian like triggers some warning. And I have tried to talk to people at PayPal, and they just act like there's nothing that can be done. So it's gotten a little bit better, but yeah, it's like, especially people trying to buy the CDs from overseas. Like I had a fellow from Germany who was trying to buy them just a couple of weeks ago, and like we have to do like a personal transaction rather than do it on Bandcamp. And it's just been frustrating. And I'm not going to change the band name, but whoever would have thought that something like that would happen.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely crazy.
It's like you can't really talk to a human being at PayPal or
Oh no, it's like all of those platforms. Well, I mean, you in your day job, you outside of music, you tell me that you work with websites, etc. So
yeah,
it becomes incredibly frustrating, doesn't it? Because any of these large cloud-based solutions. You try and look around the website for a contact number. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't
Good luck,
exist.
right? Maybe you'll find a form or something. But yeah. So anyway, that's kind of one of the unforeseen consequences of choosing that name in
Yeah,
1989 or whatever.
yeah. You like, I presume, your art as well, because you've got some wonderful bits of art in the background there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Trying to think. Some of those, yeah, just stuff that my wife and I have picked up. The one, the one by the fan is something that my wife's aunt did. She's an artist, and we've got quite a few pieces by her in the house. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I've seen obviously the front cover for the latest single. Who designed that for you?
Yeah, that's my friend John Hunt. So John has John has been involved with the Persian Leaps quite a bit. He's been doing all the covers since I think our third EP, and then actually he's a longstanding musician in the Twin Cities area, been playing in bands since the 90s and so on. But anyway, so he's a very talented musician, and on more recent stuff, he actually has played bass and sung backup. So like on Electrical Living and Smiling Lessons are two releases before this current one he played. And this time around, he couldn't really be involved because of COVID. His wife has some health conditions, and it was just too hard to work around that and stay safe. So, but he still did the cover art.
No, it's a great piece of art.
Yeah, he's very talented. He does that as his day job. I mean, more in like graphic design for a company, but he does a lot of cover art on the side. I was kind of blown away to find out that like he had done the art for some Velvet Underground box set that came out some years ago. It's like, wow. Very tenuous connection between.
Yeah, so you can kind of throw that into conversation now. You can say, "Oh yeah, I get the same artist as Velvet Underground."
Right.
Yeah, you're not lying. That's that's kind of good.
Yeah.
So when did music start for you?
I think it's always been there. So I come from a pretty musical family on my mom's side. She's a musician, plays piano. Her mother was a musician. Like, I don't know, playing in church, and she was really interested in folk music and like played the guitar and dulcimer and I don't know, stuff like that. So I just kind of grew up around it. And I don't know, I think like my first musical crush was growing up. We had a couple of Simon and Garfunkel vinyl records, and I literally wore those out. That was probably when I was like, let's say 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that range. And that's kind of when I really got excited about music, I suppose.
Simon and Garfunkel's always an interesting one as a starting point.
Yeah, it's not like super cool, but
no. But when you were young, because this is quite an interesting point. When you were young, were you kind of more interested in being like Simon or Garfunkel?
Yeah, I mean, Paul Simon is the obvious choice, but like some of my favorite ones are the one, kind of the rare song where it's like the Art Garfunkel showpiece, like For Emily Wherever I Find Her, or Bridge Over Troubled Water. And I kind of wish that I could sing like him. So
yeah, I know that for me, I'm the same. I mean, it's like for me that the voice in the first instance was there, and then later on you go later on as you become more adept as a musician, or you get more into music per se, you go, well, hang on, no, it's Paul Simon. right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Although, Art Garfunkel, I believe, got like a PhD in math later in life, so that's pretty cool.
that's very cool. I certainly couldn't do that, you know. And he had great hair
Yeah.
in that. In those early so you grew up in a musical household. Um, after the music that you were listening to young, what was the band or the record or whatever that really kind of took you on a journey of I'm going to be a musician?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, like, when I was a little bit older, like junior high age, so I don't know what that means in the English terminology, but like, kind of early teenage years.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to a lot of music that's kind of embarrassing in retrospect. So, um,
Well, that's okay. Yeah,
uh,
we're all
ABBA,
friends
which
here.
I still love ABBA, but like I don't know, like REO Speedwagon and Journey and Styx, who were this kind of stuff that was very popular in the late '70s and early '80s. So that was kind of kind of what I was listening to. But then um, I think I when MTV first came out in like '81 or '82, I started watching stuff and got exposed to a bunch of kind of more mostly British bands. So U2 and I don't know, just like all the kind of second British invasion, new wave, new romantic stuff that was coming from the UK. And I think that was what, and I started listening to like the Clash and the Sex Pistols and stuff like that. So I think that was kind of where I got a little bit more mature and, um, kind of grew outgrew REO Speedwagon and Journey and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
And when did you start writing yourself?
Well, I think even back then, like a bunch of friends and I in school, like we wanted to have a band, and none of us could really play instruments, and we kind of you know said, okay, you're gonna play this, I'm gonna play this, and I started like writing lyrics to songs, but nothing really ever came of that. But I started as a drummer, so I got a drum set probably when I was like 13 or 14 or something like that, and played on my own and played in the high school band, um, drum. So I did that all through high school.
Did you have a drum hero?
Um, at the time, it was probably Neil Peart from Rush. He was amazing, but I remember being really impressed by Topper Headon from the Clash. Just like he could just seemingly do anything, like punk, obviously, but jazz and reggae, and just kind of amazing.
Mm.
So I don't know. Those are Larry Mullen Jr. from U2. That would U2 was my favorite band for kind of most of my teenage years. So he was a big
Yeah,
influence.
I love some of the drum sounds that he developed. I think it was the sounds because you wouldn't say he's the most technical drummer of all. If you put us in against someone like Pert, then that would be
Yeah.
chalk and cheese. But I think especially on things like Actung Baby, etc. Some of the drum sounds on that were amazing. So yeah, and a very solid drummer as well
hmm Yeah,
as
he was
Larry
just
Munn.
he was just like, especially on the early albums, he was doing some things that were kind of just different than like the standard, I don't know, 4/4 backbeat thing, like on Sunday
Yeah,
Bloody Sunday, just kind of a. I think he like studied like played in a marching band
you could tell.
was
Yeah,
younger. And
it's,
yeah, and
it's got that military feel to it.
yeah, exactly, totally.
Yeah,
So yeah, so he was an influence, and so I was a drummer all through high school, and I grew up in the middle of nowhere in northern Minnesota, and I always wanted to be in a band, a rock band, but there just weren't really people around who were interested in it, and so that nothing ever really happened with that. But I guess I kind of got we had a guitar. My mom had a guitar, and I kind of taught myself to play. And I think like before I went away to college, I ended up selling my drums and buying a guitar, and I just it was nice to have something more portable, but I really wanted to do something more melodic and like actually start writing songs. So that was
Yeah,
kind of when I started to do that, like late teenage years.
yeah. Well, and you certainly can write songs.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and you've got an ear for a catchy, got an ear for a really catchy tune.
Well, thank
That
you.
you're, I mean, is that important to you? Is that kind of sense of, something that someone can actually earworm in your like, if you like,
Yeah, definitely. I
not
mean,
not forget.
I'm not like. I mean, I've been playing guitar for decades now, and I'm not saying I'm a bad guitarist, but like I'm not a lead guitarist. I really can't play a solo to save my life. And so I just, I kind of focus on the riffs and the hooks, and yeah, so that's very important to me. And that, typically what my songwriting process is, so like I'll be messing around and come up with a riff, and some word or phrase comes to mind, and I try to build a song around it. And it's usually you know kind of odd, but it's rare that I sit down and think, oh, I'm going to write a song about X or Y.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So on when this gets out, there's that refrain, it repeats, etc.
Yeah.
And it very much gets into your head, and you come away from it thinking, yeah, I've got this. What's that song about?
Yeah, well, I didn't necessarily know as I was writing it. I'm sure that in the process I like, came up with that main riff that starts out the song. And I probably went into the verse singing when this gets out, and then I kind of had to come up with some kind of cohesive, you know, narrative around that phrase, when this gets out. And that's just kind of how my process tends to work, and I kind of discover what the song is going to be about. But ultimately, like, looking back, I kind of feel like it's a reaction to the Trump years in America, where every week there would be some kind, he would do or say something just awful, and you think, okay, that's it, you know that's the thing that sinks him. And then next week he would say something even more awful, and nothing ever really came of it. He was impeached
Yeah,
twice, and you know still around, and allegedly contemplating running again in 2024. So anyway, but politics aside, I kind of see the song as like just kind of envisioning some, I don't know what this is, but when this gets out, it's gonna be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and
yeah.
finally motivates change and revolution or something.
There was a sense when I was listening to it that I was kind of reminded, and you might go, really? But I was kind of reminded of Talking Heads.
Oh, really? Thank you. I don't.
Yeah, um, because because in a way it's quite a jolly tune. It's quite an upbeat tune, but there's irony in it, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
I would
Yeah,
say that's kind of a theme with me. I think I have described us in the past as like, um, upbeat sounding songs with depressing lyrics. So,
but that's great though, isn't it? I
yeah,
mean, I think
and
being able to turn that like that.
I definitely kind of strive for that irony in the lyrics, and I like to make things a little bit, you know, more more oblique, rather than coming out and saying something wearing your heart on your sleeve. I like to kind
Mm.
of, build some layers in there. And
yeah, I think that's great for an audience as well, because I think that, it's almost like when you're listening to things like that, there's people that are in the know,
yeah,
and then there's kind of like, yeah, this is great, but then later when they take it home and they listen to it, you know what I mean by that. So you go to see a gig by someone like yourself, and there will be people there that are just like, yeah, that's all right, that's good, I like that. But then if they then go and listen to it a bit more and a bit more, they go, oh, hang on, he's saying that.
yeah.
I didn't get that. And that for you is quite important, I guess.
Yeah, and I can't think of any examples right offhand, but I think there have been times where, like, someone has like gotten something out of like the lyrics to a song, or interpreted something from it that, like, it was in no way what I was thinking of or intended. But I guess I kind of intentionally keep the songs a little bit open ended, and to try not to spell everything out. So
Yeah. And drone etiquette. Are we becoming drones?
yeah, that's actually so that title, my wife suggested that to me. She's actually suggested a couple recently that I think I'm going to use for future EPs. But that one was like, I don't know. It was like an article she saw somewhere called "Drone Etiquette," and it was an article about rules to follow when you're flying your little radio controlled drone around. And but I just like the sound of it, and kind of like the double meaning of, like, of worker drones, and, like, just kind of the rules
Yeah.
that we follow on a daily basis in our sad little lives.
Do you kind of? I mean, you're in that industry as well, the website industry. But I mean, being that kind of close to it, do you kind of feel that we're sort of sucked in terms of online these days?
Oh yeah, it's funny. I used to be a voracious reader. I mean, I read a lot of novels, and just constantly reading. And I feel like a couple of things have spoiled that for me. So one of them was, like, even like before the internet got such a part of our daily lives, I like read the Harry Potter books as they were coming out, and, like, I felt like, it was just, they were just so enjoyable, and just kind of a quick rush. And I kind of found that, like, after that, I had trouble reading anything more serious. I just kind of wanted something that was as fun as they were. But and then in the last 10 years or so, I'm just like either streaming stuff, or endlessly scrolling through Facebook and whatever. And I just have not read a novel in
Mm.
in years, or like even like an article. And, like, I still get a couple magazines, and I find it hard to even read the articles that I'm interested in. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's difficult. I mean, I've got I've actually gone the other way. I never used to read at all.
Oh wow, okay.
um, which was always a bit of a mystery to my teachers at school, because I was always really good at English,
Okay, yeah.
and they could not understand how you could be good at English and good at writing if you didn't read.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
But I just found that writing really natural, and I could write poetry and could write prose really easily. But I struggled so much with with reading, and it's only in the last probably 5 or so years that I've actually started reading, and it's mainly because I've actually found my type of book.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. I can't read novels, so
Okay.
that's not my thing. I read autobiographicals,
Okay. Yeah.
and that's it. I find sort of exploring, if it's really well written, and I find exploring somebody looking back at their life or looking through an aspect of their life. I find that interesting.
Yeah,
But
no, I know. I've never, when I was reading, I always read novels, but I definitely know people, like, I think in more recent years, my mother has, like, just really can't read fiction anymore, and she wants to read nonfiction, and whether that's autobiographies or books
yeah,
about other topics. But
maybe you've just grown out of novels.
yeah, maybe.
Maybe maybe that's what it is. So when's the single out, or the EP?
The EP is released on October 1st, so digital and CD. Although you can pre-order them on Bandcamp. Although don't if you if anyone runs into problems,
don't mention carpets or Persia.
Yeah, if anyone runs into trouble, there's an email address on the Bandcamp page, and email me, and we'll work something out. But
yeah. And is there going to be an album to follow, or are you trying to stick to short format?
Yeah, so basically I'm going back to the EP format. So, our first 5 releases were EP. So every fall we released a 5-song EP and did that for 5 years, and then we did a couple things differently, kind of a collection anthology, and then a full album, Electrical Living. But I've decided just to go back to EPs. I just kind of like the schedule of, like, having this smaller batch of songs, working on them over the winter, getting them done, releasing them in the fall, and starting the cycle over again. It's just more manageable than because I don't know. I really want to keep releasing something every year, and that's more important to me than, I don't know. I'm kind of I guess I personally don't really have the attention span to listen to a full album anymore.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, it's very contemporary of you.
Yeah,
to do that. It's where all the young kids are. Yeah, you're releasing EPs, not albums. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, ultimately, do you think, in terms of listeners as well, that there has been that cultural shift that people do not listen to albums quite so much anymore?
I'd like to think so, but I feel like it's probably a demographic.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a whole load of people my age that go, no, the album is sacrosanct.
Definitely, like, people my age, 40s and 50s or whatever, I think they still want albums, and, like, I mean, I'm going to keep producing CDs, but I don't know. It seems like definitely older people in the audience are the ones who, like, still really want to have the CD, something physical, and they're just not going to buy it if they can't buy a physical copy. So that's kind of why I'm still making CDs. But I think I hear occasionally, like, when are you going to make an album? Why don't you make an album? But
I think it's going to change. I think over time it is going to change, and it's going to evolve even further. I personally think it's going to be a creative challenge for those that make music, is to find ways of adding value to what they're producing music wise, because of streaming, etc., in order to bring the money in. But I think it's it's like the same as you say, you work on websites, but it's the same as the way things like e-commerce have gone and everything else. It's all about finding additional value and attaching, maybe creating attachment content, or almost like you have landing pages with websites,
right.
Like a song being a kind of a landing page into a greater whole. And I like
that analogy. That's I hadn't thought of it that way, but that kind of is true. Yeah, this, like, the single is a landing page. And I like, for the EPs, I mean, I I've never really called them this. I feel like it would be pretentious of me to say, oh, they're not an EP, they're a mini album. But that's kind of how I think about it.
Hmm.
It's not like the single and a handful of B-sides, dance remixes, whatever, right? It's like I think of it as, the five literally the five best songs that I have at the moment that go well together, and they're
Yeah.
all, at least in my mind, potentially singles. It's not the single and plus some filler.
Well, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because all of those concepts go back to a time when things physically had to fit on a certain physical format.
Right, right.
You know, um, with albums, you used to have a double album because you'd written so many songs, or an EP could only physically hold
Right, right.
so much music. CD could hold that little bit more. But I do think with time that will probably disappear a little bit, and people will just understand that's a project, that's a collective that is complete.
Yeah, yeah.
It
It's
doesn't. It
like,
doesn't.
whether it's 5 songs or 10 or 20, it is what it is. I mean, I
Yeah.
think I think about just like, some of the EPs that I think of when I plan this out, like REM's Chronic Town, where it was like, they're like, I
Mm.
can't remember, like 5 songs or whatever, and like they're all awesome. Or Pavement's Watery Domestic, 4 songs that are all really good. And so, that's kind of what I'm aiming for, a cohesive body of work rather than the single and plus filler.
Yeah. And I think it's something that's always been there for a lot of musicians. I think it's just that the formatting's changed. I was reading recently some stuff that Robert Smith wrote about B-sides,
Oh,
and just, trying to make sure that the B-side was very coherent with the A-side. And in fact, actually, he never saw for a lot of the time it as an A-side and a B-side. It was just two songs that wanted to go out at the same time because there was a cohesion between them.
oh, cool. Okay.
So I just think, the format thing in a way has kind of got in the way of that a little bit over the years. It's like you've got to fit it on this, so we've got to call it that.
Right, right.
How many stories have you read over the years from musicians where there was an argument over what would be the A side and the B side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shouldn't, in a way, maybe that will dissipate and not be there anymore. It's just, well, I'm releasing those two tracks.
Yeah, yeah. It shouldn't matter, right? I agree.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what's next for you after this? You go back, do another EP again?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of I typically will have these things planned out like a year or two in advance. Like, I'm like
Wow, that's
recording.
organized.
I know. It's probably very unusual and maybe a little bit weird, but yeah. So I kind of already have a set of 5 songs that I'm gonna work on for the next EP, which will be out in the fall of 2022. Um, and I imagine I'll start working on that probably in October or November. It's been a little bit it's been a little weird because, so I mentioned that my friend John Hunt was not able to record with me this time around, and because of COVID. Another change was that Neil Weir, a friend of mine who he's a studio owner, engineer. He's basically recorded and mixed almost all of our stuff, and he also had some medical conditions where he had to be extremely careful of COVID. And he, like at the beginning of the pandemic, he basically like packed up most of the stuff from his studio and like moved out to his mom's place in rural Wisconsin, just like a couple hours from where I live in the middle of the country. And so he was still involved mixing drone etiquette, but I had to go into a new studio for the first time, different studio, and work with someone else to do the actual tracking, recording of the songs. So it sounds like that's probably gonna happen again this time around on the next EP. So it's, you know, it's kind of getting used to a new process, new people. I mean, it worked out really well, but it was just you know, kind of additional stress, like.
Yeah.
And because to the studio, that it's a place called Terrarium Studios in Minneapolis. That's, I mean, I don't know. It's not Abbey Road, but it's, compared to what I'm used to, it's a palace. It's just, you know, gorgeous inside, and, you know, some people whose names we would all recognize have worked there, and it's just a really impressive place. So I kind of had a little bit of imposter syndrome when I, you know, showed up there to do my little.
Well, to further that imposter syndrome, is there anyone you would ever like to appear on an EP of yours?
Well, you know, I'm a huge Guided by Voices, Robert Pollard fan, and it would be, you know, he's done a lot of things over the years, like collaborations with like Tommy Keene or Mac McCon from Superchunk, and just stuff like that. And I think it would be pretty cool to do something with him. I you know, I don't think it's going to happen, but that's
Never say never.
Never say never, but that's kind of the one thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, so hopefully, you know, that would put a smile on Drew's face for next next quarter's edition. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so we'll look out and see whether that actually ever happens. That would be a great thing. Drew, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Graham. It was great, a good conversation.
Thank you so much for your time. If people want to get hold of your music, it's on Bandcamp, under Drew, or is it under?
It's under the Persian Leaves. We're all, and you know, we're also on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon and Tidal and whatever else, all the digital streamers. Yeah, I lose track.
All of that. That's where people can go and listen to it first before they actually put some money in the bucket.
Yeah. But Bandcamp is always the most direct way to pay artists. We get, it's the best deal for artists. So try to do that if you can. But wherever you listen is appreciated.
Brilliant. Drew, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Graham. Take care.
Cheers. Bye for now.